There are times when we know exactly who we want to be. We know what we want to lead. We know how we want to respond. We may have a clear goal, a new vision, or a different way we want to show up in our relationships, businesses, and organizations. Then something happens. Someone questions our judgment. A team member disappoints us. A decision carries more uncertainty than we expected. We feel criticized, overlooked, responsible, exposed, and out of control. And suddenly, we are no longer responding as the person we intended to be. We are over-explaining, taking the work back, trying to control the outcome, and avoiding the conversation. Protecting someone from the consequences of their own decision, or reacting in a way that makes us wonder afterward, why did I do that when I know better? That gap between what we consciously intend and what takes over in the moment is what we are exploring today. Welcome back to Your Passion, Purpose, and Personal Brand. I'm Lisa McGuire, Strategic Identity Advisor and creator of Category of Only. And I'm here today with my friend, Dr. Ursula Lentine, to welcome her back for round 2 on the podcast. Ursula, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Gosh, you so beautifully articulated that. That was amazing, because that's what happens. That's our human experience in leadership. And the way you said it is like the things that are happening in the background that never come to the foreground that we can actually see. You're amazing the way you do that. I'm glad to be here, Lisa.
Well, I've lived it before, and I know you have too, Ursula, and I know many of members of our audience, but, I want to give the audience a little bit of your background. You've spent more than 2 decades helping people understand and resolve the hidden patterns influencing how we respond to stress, relationships, responsibility, and change. And your work helps people identify what may be operating beneath the surface, particularly when our conscious intentions are not producing the behavior or results that we want. You and I are going to be working together. We're going to give a sneak peek into day 2 of Architecture. And we'll be talking about that in a little bit, where we're going to help women integrate what they discover on day 1 and apply it through the identity and internal architecture required to lead what we call the new human economy. So we're going to jump right in today to talk about something everybody has experienced. We can be really clear about what we want to do or how we want to respond. And then in the moment, we do the opposite. So my first question to you is, why can someone know exactly what they want to respond and still find themselves falling into this old reaction? Is that a lack of discipline or willpower, or is something else happening underneath this conscious decision?
Yeah, it's called the subconscious is running the show at 90% of the time. And as strong as we want to be willpower, it will fail 10 out of 10 times. So the best idea is the New Year's Eve resolution, the New Year's Day resolution. I'm going to lose 5 pounds. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do. By February 1st, everyone's like, what was on that list again? And we fail. And no matter, I'm going to make a thing. I'm going to have an accountability partner. We have a default system that is running the show that comes from our subconscious. It is there before we can willpower, before we can think, before we can figure it out. So all these people who think, 2 steps ahead, 5 steps ahead. I'm the smartest person in the room. Okay, great. And it still doesn't work. And they feel undermined, defeated, confused. And it's a frustration that we fight ourselves about all the time.
I think we have become very accustomed to hearing and using the word in our daily vernacular, the word trigger, right? We hear, that triggered me, or that's something that was triggering. When we use this word trigger, what are we actually describing? Like, what's happening between the event and the meaning that our mind and our body assigns to it?
So it's as if there's a screen and you're like, this would be perfect, and this is how I want it, and I'm going to control everything. And then something inside gets triggered. So a trigger on a gun, it's very small. So you have this giant gun, say it's a rifle. The little curve, the little comma there, just a little touch explodes a bullet that can cause great harm. That little touch. So it triggers like a very good word for this, because you're trying to be in pure control. And then this little thing happens. Somebody looks at you the way your mom used to look. You feel criticized. And then you're like, oh, and then the avalanche, the emotional avalanche inside starts happening. And that whole perfect picture, there's a spot on it, and you're a 5-year-old being criticized by your mother, and now you're trying to present. That's what a trigger is. So you have a mental vision, a mental idea, mental intention, but then the emotions override. And you're like, oh, I'm not an emotional person. Yeah, because you've done a great job at suppressing and locking and hiding, putting the carpet and the dining room table and the chairs over the hatch of emotion. So people who walk around emotionless, they're not having access to their subconscious. But you can see the results. Their subconscious is still driving the show, regardless of their ability to suppress emotional responses. Another perfect example is you go in the grocery store and there's a kid having a meltdown on aisle 3 in the cereal row. And you're like, oh my God. And the mother's embarrassed, shamed. I'm a bad mom. This kid's out of control. But when you think about it, our human nature is to have a fit. We've been conditioned over time, like, keep it together, don't look unprofessional. But really, we want to have a fit. So it's this fit that we have on certain levels, whether it's an emotional meltdown. Nobody loves me. I'm not good enough. I'm unworthy. I shouldn't even be here. To, no one listens to me. And I say something important and I want to be heard. Like all of that. Be a good little girl. No. Don't make an ugly face. So we're like robots.
Yes, it really is. And, I think about being in situations where, it might be something happens and it's not anything the person in that room did, but it's something you're recalling from another time you may not even be aware of. So it can be really subtle.
Yes. That's why it's the trigger. It's so subtle. It's so minor. And your brain would miss it. You'll be like, I was doing the presentation, and then all of a sudden, and it could have been a side eye from one of your people at the conference table.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about a situation where maybe you're not understood by a particular person, and then you're in an entirely different environment and you get that side eye, or you get someone who talks over you, or they misinterpret something, and then you have this meltdown in aisle 3 on the inside while you're trying to hold it together. So yes, I can see why that would be so emotional and take us off track. So that's one word we hear is triggered. The other words that we hear, and I know that you have a great deal of expertise in helping people navigate through this, is hidden friction. So how is hidden friction different from the visible problem that we think we're trying to solve?
Yes, and that's the hidden friction would be after the trigger has been released, right? The side eye or the thing or the reminder, or you forgot your words and now you feel embarrassed and shame. And then that hooks to that whole story that you never got around to healing just yet, quite yet. So then this conflict is like, I'm interfacing in this professional meeting situation and the stuff is up. So we're trying to control it. Like, no, everything's fine. No, it's not. So, the person's having this conversation of like, yeah, Wow, they're like, and today's data report is, and you're just trying to do like two different conversations at the same time. So not only is there an inner friction between the voice of, oh, I feel shamed right now. No, keep it together. You have to perform. And then this outward, like, okay, we're giving this presentation. So now you have this friction conflicting with this friction, and then trying to hyper manage everything going on in the room, not to further activate the inner turmoil. So there's like at least three layers of friction going on that we can't process because the brain is using 80% of their energy to stay focused and on point and deliver the goods of your presentation or whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that the visible moment may not be the entire story. Maybe something happens in the present, but it activates some type of meaning or experience or a protective response that may have been established long before the moment. And Ursula, just as you're describing these layers, like I'm starting to feel a weight on my no wonder we're exhausted, right?
Right. And then on top of that, if somebody is empathic, so what empathic means is they feel other people's feelings. When we're born, we're very connected. In my opinion, where do babies come from? Straight from heaven, really, right? They come from this other place in time. And that's why they're so blissed out. And that's why being a human being is like, they have colic and, they can't do the breastfeeding thing. And it's like anxious producing. Because they came from this wonderful place, in the womb of comfort, and all the needs are met before you even know you have a need. So, and then we're blasted out into this world. But because we have that reference of all my needs are met and I'm fully connected to my environment, that's why in those first couple of years of life, we're very connected. And that's why people just fall in love with the baby because it's so like blissful. But then at age 2, we start realizing, no, there's a sense of separation. They're not connected to me. They have a different plan. Like I'm crying my head off and nobody's coming. What's going on here? Oh, so there must be some sort of separation. So when people who are empathic, these are people, myself, who they didn't really buy into that whole separation. So we still feel other people's feelings. So someone come in the room and they look perfectly put together, but you have a sense that they're not okay right now. But your eyes are fooling you, but your heart is like, oh, they're suffering from something. And then it activates our compassion and we want to kind of lean into them like, are you okay? What's going on? But if they're feeling sad, an empath might be like, oh, sadness. Oh, yes, I feel sad too. So if a person is empathic and they're in a professional situation and they're reading all of these things that because the mask is on,
right,
then they also feel like overwhelmed. And then they match it. So if that person said, oh, I feel sad too. And that person's stressed, oh, I feel stressed too. I feel their stress. I feel my stress. Oh, their stress. So can you imagine all the layers of things going on? Just 10 o'clock in the morning and, on a normal day. So when you say, oh, I feel a little tired, this is why, because we're carrying so much and we have no idea because this thing is running the show. And this brain and this consciousness is very small compared to everything else I just described. They say communication it mostly is in body language. And it, in a way, it's like what's going on in the body and what's being conveyed sensory, not the 5 senses, but the 6th sense of that connection and that sense of we have with each other. And women tend to have more woman's intuition, mother's intuition. So that intuition can also be like we're able to read the room in a different way, similar to empathic.
Yes, and I'm thinking about these connections that we have and the amount of emotional load we carry about why it is so important to take time to pause, to take a break, to get up and go take a walk, to clear some of that, because that is an enormous enormous responsibility that we believe we have, but it's an enormous load for all of us to carry. So, how does a response that may have once protected us or served us become a pattern that now limits us?
How about denial?
Okay.
so
I don't know anything about that. Would you know?
Yeah, sure. You know, the roof is leaking, the car's making noises.
Yes.
You and your spouse aren't talking anymore. The bank accounts are dwindling. You haven't spoken to your best friend in 3 months, and you're just like, everything's fine. Because at a time and place in perhaps our history or even our ancestors' history, they could not, there was nothing they could do. Like, for instance, my mom was raised, she was a child during World War II in Germany. That little girl had zero control over the bombs and the food lines and her dad being gone and her mom being a nervous wreck. Zero control. So instead of feeling the anxiety of everybody and everything, we create a little bubble and we're like, you know what? Everything's fine in my little bubble. Everything's fine. Because that is a survival tactic that will get us through a crisis. But sometimes not the brain, but the emotional, the subconscious doesn't know the crisis is over. So we will perpetually live in an abusive household or a neglectful household, or the war is still going on, or the car accident that happened, or grandma dying, or whatever it is that stays in our emotional history and it repeats. So there's another load that we carry. So if our learned behavior was, we're just going to deny it and say everything's okay, that works. So we'll just keep doing it because it works.
There's a lot of that going on. a lot of
because in our current environment, it seems like we have no choices. Right? Let's not even get started on, here, do you want this app? Give us the rights of your email. We're going to delete anything and change it. Oh, okay, I'll just do that because I want this convenience here. So we're giving away our authority and our our privacy and, just like our individuality just to get along. But something else is going on. And those of us who feel things are like, something's not right. But then when we look around and say, I cannot make any changes, now parts of us are getting angry, but we have nowhere to put that anger. So then we go into addiction. You see, it's just like there's a bunch of energy, but it needs a place to go. And if it doesn't have anywhere to go, we'll pop out, or we'll addict, or we'll just deny, or we'll become robots. So it's kind of a dangerous time because our minds are being drawn away from our choice, our responsibility, our privilege. So now people who are like, no, I'm not having any of this. I'm so done with these systems. I need to wake up, get my act together, stop all the denial and self-sabotage and distractions, and take responsibility for my life, my family's life, and get my brain back on my schedule instead of, some app or some device that's telling me who to be and how to be and buy this thing and you'll have a better life. Like, no, that's not reality.
Yes, and I think with what we're seeing right now, it is driving us back to ourselves. We're more aware of setting boundaries or protecting our energy. I see a lot of that going on. And, Ursula, I guess it was 2 episodes ago in the Identity Evolution series that I was talking about fear of expansion. All right. Now, fear of expansion, sometimes people refer to that as fear of success. Dr. Gay Hendricks calls it the upper limit problem, but that happens in times where maybe, you're experiencing things such as maybe a promotion or becoming more visible or entering a new relationship. So things are going really well for us. And so what happens is these patterns, these triggers, this hidden friction, becomes more visible during these periods of growth and change or increased responsibility. Why do we see so much of that happening when that is really what we told ourselves we wanted?
Yes, great question. Yeah, it's the resistance of growth, because in our human nature, we're still mammals. We can drive cars and, turn the computer on, but we're still mammals. So that is super hard drive in our system. So our mammal nature is, oh, I could get killed today. Let me protect. So we are in heavy protection mode. So we think in our human American culture that if we can control our time, our day, our food, our location, that we will be safe. So we have all these mechanisms, and we're not thinking like, oh, I better be safe. I better drink enough water today so I don't dehydrate. My brain starts clicking out and I can't remember words. I must drink. No, we're like, oh, I need to drink, take care of myself. We're not thinking safety, but in the way background, it's all about safety, especially women, because we're a smaller gender and we have something men want. So we're always feeling defensive and like don't mess with me. I'm bigger than you think I am. It's just like, calm down, everybody. But so we're trying to provide safety for ourselves. So if you think of a child, you're a grandma and you have your beautiful grandchildren. If they don't feel happy or safe, they'll build a little fort and put a blanket in the chairs and the pillows, and now they'll be safe in their little tent, in their little fort. That's what we do. So we create the safety of this routine, and what are we going to do, and all of this, and I'll build my little success and go up the ladder. But then once we're outside of our little fort, we're like, oh, it's kind of scary. I don't know what that's going to be like. This is the unknown. I could get killed. I'm going to go back in. So our head might be like, this is the plan, and we're going to make millions, and we're going to do this, and it's a little risk, but that's okay. Our little person inside is like, no, I'm going to build a fort, and I'm going to just not do that. That's too scary. But the brain's like, no, it's going to work. I have the team. I have the thing. I have the systems. We can do this. The world needs this. We can do this. And then the other person. So there's that inner friction again.
Yes, I'm thinking back to aisle 3, the meltdown. I'm thinking back to building this fort and putting this blanket over us. There's so many clues that children naturally have that we can learn from that we're really doing ourselves. But we've learned to be conditioned through it, right? As you referenced earlier, we learn to put on this mask, right? And so we see so many high-performing people that are often able to conceal and hide these patterns, a lot of times even from ourselves. So why do we hide these things from ourselves?
It's too much information. Again, like a child in the war. I can't do anything with that. We do not have tools in our society on purpose to look inside and take a sincere and humbling look at our monsters, our demons, our negative thought patterns, our shame, our criticism. Not good enough. We don't have the courage, the tools, the capacity to turn around and face the things that are driving us. So when you talk about the big masks on those CEOs and the leaders and things, they take risks. They are outside of their little fort all the time. But they've built that because they don't want to feel insecure, vulnerable, exposed. So they they macro, they make it real big because the trauma from where they're running from was so hurtful. And sometimes, like you could have 2 kids in the same family, and one's got tough skin and you can do anything, and they're like, so what? And the other one's like, oh my God, he yelled at me. So the sensitive people are the ones who have to wear the bigger masks because they get hurt the hardest.
Yes, and I think a lot of times this dysfunction doesn't necessarily show itself because we are able to perform with these high standards, being prepared, being responsible, being the person who can, like, give it to me. I can handle everything, right? But inside you're, oh, what am I doing? And I find a lot of times this behavior is praised while women are performing. Like we've been moved to this arena to do it, and it's not only women; it's men as well. But it is that increasing exhaustion that we experience, the controlling, the resentment that comes up,
Yes.
this disconnection we have. So that brings us to where I want to go next, Ursula, is how this hidden friction shows up in leadership. Because I know a lot of our listeners are not only within corporate, but they're also entrepreneurs, founder, business owners. What are some of the most common ways hidden friction appears in accomplished women and leaders? What are some of the behaviors that we might see?
Probably a very large, not probably, I try to be nice about it. Let me just say it straight out. A very large sense of control,
Mm.
because that person, who is an overachiever. So if somebody, let me put it this way, if somebody lives in a nice place with a nice mom and dad, and they get to feel their feelings, and they get to articulate, and they get to ask for what they want, their needs are met, and they go to school and they're very supported, and they have a group of friends, and they live this very safe, happy life, that child will not be driven to be highly successful. Because when people are financially secure and in the world of measurements, they've got it, they won A plus. Now, what are they looking for? They have been trying to fulfill an emptiness inside of them this whole time. They've climbed the corporate ladder, burned the midnight oil, gone to hospital for different diseases because the body keeps the score, and we suppress. We have chronic stress, and that shows up in indigestion, migraines, sleep disorder, TMJ, like all the things, right? Irritable bowel syndrome, like just name it. Like, where's that come from? Even the American Medical Association is like, stress is causing most diseases. So when you talk about that inner friction, when you do the reflection and you look at what's the condition of my physical well-being, there's your measurement. So when you have these measurements, then you say to the person who's succeeded and who's checked all the boxes, they have that emptiness inside of them that they've been trying to fill. Now, what do they look for? They're looking for connection. They're looking for meaning. They're looking for peace. They're looking for beauty, like being in nature, being in the mountains, being by the beach. They're looking for simplicity. So when you have that one person who has the nice family and the nice thing, they have simplicity, connection, appreciation of beauty, safety, family relationships that are meaningful. They put a lot of value in the simple things. So that person who has had all their needs met is operating in a very simple life. They don't need to have the mountain house and the thing and the whatever and the money and the suits they don't need all that. So this person who's driven, now they're looking for what that simple person has. So this simple person is actually more wealthy than that person who has the list of accomplishments. Because at the end of the day, I've done plenty of hospice work. They're not talking about money. They're talking about quality of life. They're talking about no regrets. So this person who has a simple life has quality of life every day and has no regrets because they can't live with an unclean heart. They need to say, hey, I'm sorry, I said that thing was a little rude. I didn't mean to do. I apologize. They have humility because they want peace. So this person, who knows what they have to do to get up there, and the burdens they're carrying and the secrets and the shame and the things and the whatever, because you're in compromised situations. That's why the risk taker is climbing up there, because they've got the big balls, they've got the guts, they've got the determination. And sometimes you have to make compromises, but now that's sitting in the big pack that we're carrying on our back of responsibilities, and no one will ever know, but that's okay. I can carry it. I'm the leader. So those kind of people, back to your question, they have a high sense of control because they've had to control all of this. And now you have some simple person like, oh, I want to work for you. So they want to control the simple person. They want to control everybody because that's how they've achieved. And then a control. So you'll have these professionals and no one can work for them because no one can put up with that much micromanagement. And that person cannot go further because they're trying to control everybody and everything. And it's exhausting for these people because they can't shine, they can't contribute, they can't add value. And then that person can't control. Now talk about another version of conflict that's happening within a business.
Mm-hmm. And that leads me into this whole control idea is, leaders can't do everything, right? Leaders are supposed to lead other people, which means we're required to delegate. So what is happening when someone delegates the task, but continues to carry the judgment, the risk, the emotional responsibility, and the final authority? What is that hidden friction that's showing up?
Trust. They don't trust. They can't trust. It is too risky to trust. To trust is dangerous in the mind of that kind of person who is the overachiever, who is really managing everything. Because if they trusted and the person failed and the leader wasn't double, check, and now it's time for that leader to go ahead and do the thing, and they pick up the paper and it's a big mess and it has inaccurate data. And somebody's like, hey, what about that data? And you're like, oh, now you look like the fool. And why should I, as the professional leader, look like the fool? Because this insignificant person doesn't understand the kind of risks that I'm involved in. So, of course, I'm going to have to double check and make sure, because it's my reputation and my word and my face that is on the brand. So I can't risk the brand over this person who doesn't understand the value of what I'm providing. Oh. And it makes perfect sense to that leader. And the other person is like, I can't work for them. They have perfectionism. It's too much stress. They're always looking over my shoulder. How can I do something when somebody's overlooking my shoulder? Just do it yourself. You're not giving me any value. You're not giving me any respect. You're not giving me any consideration. That's why when you talk to me, I got this look on my face.
Now I can see that. So let me ask you, because we all have these, we'll just call them saboteurs, right? We all have these things that get in the way. What is it that needs to happen for a leader to realize this is impacting the bottom line of the business, or this is impacting their employees, their team members? What is it that has to happen for them to finally do something about this?
We were just speaking about denial. Companies will exist like this under those circumstances as long as they can. Because how are you going to change that problem? Get a new employee, but it's the same thing because it's the leader who's making that condition. So how's the leader going to find trustworthy people when they don't trust? That's the kind of question you're asking me. So it's really, there has to be a new way. There has to be a different way. And that's why you and I are doing Architect Her, because it's a new way. It's a new way of being. That's why when clients come to me and they're like, look, I tried everything. I've been to therapy, like things aren't working. I don't know the answer. And I'm a really smart person. I'm like, okay, we're going to turn around and look what's driving the behavior. And you and those monsters, if you will, those negative doubts and fear and insecurity, those phrases that we hear in the back of our head, we're going to turn around and we're going to be like, okay, where's this all coming from? And why are you guys harassing me? I'm doing good in the world. Like, get off of me. So these saboteurs, the denial, the one having the fit in aisle 3, like they're all in the background, just making us upset and frustrated. So like they're asking, well, how can I find more time? How can I find more energy? It's in here because we're spending so much time having that inner conflict that if we don't have to have that, now we have a lot more capacity, more intuition can come in. We can listen to the smaller voices instead of the loud megaphone voices. And then we can start aligning with our true nature and our true purpose and our true skills and have this capacity to communicate to the person, listen, I have high expectations because my brand is on the line. This. You must triple check all of these things before you present it to me. And I'm going to have a more trustworthy person in the middle who does understand me, who's managing all of this. And they can manage that person. And then I can also quadruple check the information that they already checked. And then I can feel more secure. So it's not like this person's not going to not have that control, but it's going to be less. And then they're going to have the capacity to make systems, understanding they have a control issue. But so let me put these 4 or 5, layers in so I don't have to ruin relationships of people who want to work and produce and contribute, because we all want to contribute. It's a part of our human need, our mammal need, is to contribute to the collective.
And I can see where this does take time and putting systems in place to make sure that you can build that trust. But it just really emphasizes, Ursula, the need for us to bring humanity back to business as we look at creating this new human economy. But I do want to visit one other thing, because I see this a lot. You and I talk a lot about communication. But when we are in a meeting, we're in a business setting, we're in a room, an environment where we want to communicate something, but we either read the room, we over-explain, we soften the message, right? We are avoiding conversations that we know that we should have, having those hard conversations. How does that impact a business's ability to be able to produce the revenue at once, to bring in the type of customers that it needs, to keep the customers? What's going on there? It's almost like there's a little sideshow circus going on.
Right. So each one of those things that you said, like read the room, soften the message, all of that, that's the default trauma response, if you will, before we even part our lips. Right. So we're sitting there, we have some information, where the company really needs it. I've got this thing to contribute, but that guy, he doesn't like me. And this one, every time I talk, he interrupts me. And then this and then that. And then what if I say it? And what if I don't say it right? And then what if nobody backs me up? And then I'll be shameful. And then, so all of it before they part their lips. So that's one of the problems of why things don't grow and move in the right direction. Because again, so say you have a leader who doesn't trust anybody, these people have plenty of things to contribute. But because this person is like, I don't value you, it's like a parental, ooh. So everyone's like, ooh. So who wants to create in that kind of environment? So what has to happen is the environment in the boardrooms and in these big meetings needs to change. And our friend Don Barden wrote the book, Here Come the Girls. And Data, he's an economist, thank you.
There you go.
and he unequivocally shows the data. Women will be in leadership. Global is the point, the word that I love in that sentence, that stat. Global leadership by 2028 at 57%. We're already at 43%. Women are intuitively, naturally mothers. Whether we are a mother or not, we have the mother way. Females, our brain is multi-aware. Men's brains are single focused. This has been developed over time because men need to hunt, they need to build, they need to do the thing. So women were like, oh, how's the fire going? How's that lady doing over there? She was sick. Where's the kids? What time of day is it? What's the weather? So we were always like tracking multiple things because that's our nature, because we're raising the children. So we have to be multi-aware. When women are in the boardroom and they're multi-aware, like, oh, that person's having a bad day, and oh, this person's all grouchy and he's going to, sabotage this whole meeting again. And oh, this person. And so they're going to say, you know what? No one ate yet. Let me make sure there's some food and regulate everybody's blood sugar. Let me put some, nice colors in the room. Let me create an atmosphere of safe sharing. Let me make sure that everybody on the table is being heard. Let me make sure no one's cross-talking. So these are the kind of cultural things to create safety. Because when we're insecure and we're like reading the room and all of that stuff, we're saying, I don't feel safe. But if a woman can come in and say, hey, I need a safe environment so everybody can share, because that quiet one over there, she gets what's going on and she probably has a couple of answers, but she's too insecure to share. So it's always the quiet one in the room who has typically like the gold. So that we need to change our culture in workspaces so we can be human again, so we can share again, so we can say, you know what, I just got a close call in the car right now and my light flashed in front of me and I just need to sit here for a few minutes. Okay, great. No wonder. Good. Well, we can be human because we've been dehumanized. Because we want perfection. We want, hey, wear this mask, wear this mask. When we show up at work with a mask on, we're not being our fulfilled self. We're not contributing. We're just looking for a paycheck. We're looking at the clock. When can I leave this place? But we spend so much of our time working. And like I said, our human nature is for people to contribute. What if we had a workplace where everybody was looking forward to going to work, to contributing, to getting something done, to connecting, to having a laugh at the water cooler, to, feeling like there's sunshine instead of a cubicle. So our culture needs to change, and that's one person at a time and one company at a time. The smaller the business, the quicker the change can happen.
Ursula, I want to tell you, when you said, imagine if we could look forward to going to work, and I felt my heart skip a beat in my body, like the hope of that, the idea of that. And I think this is where this whole conversation connects to what I do with identity. I think when a woman has been repeatedly rewarded for being the reliable one, the strong one, the person who sees around corners, right? Or the person who never lets anything fail, it stops being something she does and it becomes part of who she believes she is. So she may consciously want more freedom, greater support, or a team that takes more ownership. But somewhere beneath that desire, being needed may still feel like evidence of our value that we have. And so I think this is why so many women take on so much more, because that idea of I'm needed becomes my identity. So a question back to you is, what happens when someone wants to change a behavior, but that behavior is still protecting an important part of who she sees herself as?
Right. And that's the deep dive. That's the subconscious. And we can't look at the subconscious by ourselves. So I do a modality called internal family systems. Even the gentleman who founded this, who led it, who discovered, who wrote the books, who did all the training, even I said, can you do this to yourself? And he's like, oh, no. And I'm like, why not? You're brilliant. Like what? And he's like, no, we have these self-like. So there's our true self, which is our just, love. There's a part of us that loves us no matter what. There's a part of us that accepts all of our flaws, forgives all of our mistakes. It's just a presence within us. And I say that presence beats our heart, breathes our lungs, digests our food. It's like this thing that animates us. And then our ego, trauma response, all the things, all the insecurities, all the fear-based stuff is really running the show. It's hogging the mic. It's the loudest voice in our head. So when we can start moving from that noise into that security, not outsourced, but inner resource security, now we can live from our center and have a voice that speaks the truth and say no to behavior that's not acceptable or hurtful, even to other people. So we can be that presence in the room that says, okay, we're not goofing around. We're not being mean. we're not, power over. We're just going to be people here, and we're going to all work together for a greater good, for this product or service that we're giving out into the world. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge inner shift that needs to happen in leadership. And when people can take responsibility, saying, I've tried all the things, I've done all the things, I don't know what else to do, then they find people like me to say, okay, let's do some inner work. And they go through and they cure and heal and finally relieve the burden and the pressure that's always in the background causing this inner conflict.
Yeah, and I don't think we realize how much that carries with us, just how much of that is running. But what it leads me to see also is it helps explain why a tactical solution may not be enough, right? Telling someone to delegate more does not resolve the part of them that still feels responsible for preventing every negative outcome. Telling someone to establish a boundary doesn't resolve the part that associates disappointing someone with losing connection or trust. Here's one I love. Telling someone to be more confident, right, does not resolve the pattern that activates when we are required to become visible. And so the instruction may be correct, but the hidden friction still determines whether or not we can live it. So let's talk a little bit about how you help someone navigate that. So when someone reorganizes that, or recognizes, not reorganizes, recognizes that they have been triggered or pulled into an old response, what's the first thing they should do? Like, what should they avoid doing in that moment?
So the trigger is like, oh, explosion, something went off. Mm-hmm. See, and it's so hard to not do the work, not do the inner work to be able to catch this. Because when I was saying earlier, you unburden and you take these things off and you stop that inner fight and that inner struggle. Now you can have more capacity. Mm-hmm. So when we take all of those fighting back and forth, calm down. Okay, I'm here now. We don't have to act like that. I'm creating safety for you because nobody else did when you were, exposed to things. I'm here for myself, providing safety, providing reason, providing security, providing a space that my feelings count and they can be heard and seen. We can do that for ourselves once we have some skills and once we unburden these things that we've carrying that are causing lots of energy sucking from us. And we're just to get up in the morning, we're already fighting the load. So mm-hmm. when that gets relieved and everything calms down and we have more capacity and a trigger happens, because the triggers won't be as big or frequent, or you might be like, oh, there's that thing again. But mm-hmm. to catch, so everything's going well, the presentation, the side eye happens, the emotional hit happens, and then to be so self-aware that you're like, oh, I just got an emotional hit. I don't know where that came from. I didn't catch the side eye with my conscious mind, but my subconscious look, because they're always scanning, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Because that usually comes from a volatile household where there was addiction or a short fuse on anger management, or somebody would explode for no particular reason. So that person scanning all the time is like, is it safe to exist in this house right now? Can I be happy? Can I be sad? So that's the background. But when a person has done the work, they have the capacity, they can be like, oh, I just got triggered. Okay, let me recenter, because a trigger kind of takes us out of our center and we get into like a frantic mode, and then we're trying to control everything. So let me recenter, and it's just a breath. At that point of our maturity, our emotional maturity, it's just a breath. And we kind of breathe in all the way, kind of just ground ourselves, breathing in, and then exhaling out of our hands and feet, like in a visual kind of way. And then that recalibrates us, because we go, as soon as we get triggered, we go into fight or flight. So we're in parasympathetic. So we're in sympathetic. And then to self-regulate, one breath can go like, no, we don't need to be like that. We're good. Because when we're clear-minded, now we can see the truth. We can speak the truth. We can feel grounded. We can call somebody out, and we can, hold space for everybody in the room because we're centered.
It's a very calm place to be.
And to live from. Wouldn't it be lovely to wake up in this place of like, I'm safe. Everything's going to go my way today. I'm in alignment. I'm here for the greater good. I'm here to serve. I'm here to have good boundaries and to speak my truth. I'm here to love and be loved. Oh, like, that wouldn't be so bad, would it? And what if we all were in a consciousness, an awareness, and a choice to make the world a better place, to help other people? When I teach children, and I say, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, this and that and that. And then lots of kids are like, I don't know. And I said, well, who wants to help people? Their arms shoot straight up. Everybody instinctively wants to help others because it makes us feel good to make other people feel good. And now we have a shared experience. So when people have that simple lifestyle because their needs are met and they have support system, they're very generous. They want to play. They want to give the toy to the other kid. They want to help mommy. They want to see what daddy's doing. They're very involved and engaged, those kinds of children who their needs are met. So all these CEOs and so on and so forth, their needs weren't met early on. So they said, oh, I'll show you. And they spend their whole life showing everybody.
Yeah, I just imagine, Ursula, thinking about if we're all working together, collaborating, where we all can contribute, we can all have value, just what a different culture that makes for our organizations. But I think your whole summary, like what you were describing, is the difference between knowing and having access to a new response when that pressure is real. Yeah.
Yes.
A person can agree with a new idea. They can understand it intellectually. They can write it in our notes. Okay, so here's where I'm going. As we were talking a little bit earlier about architecture, I want to really lead us into that part of the conversation now. You can learn knowledge, you can understand it, but integrating it means you have to make a choice that remains available when someone is disappointed, when the outcome is uncertain, when you feel exposed, or when the old role is asking you to step back in. And so that is why the work you do and I do belongs in this architecture experience. So I want to just share a little bit about that. Architecture is a private year-long leadership architecture for high-capacity women preparing to lead what we are calling this new human economy. And this does go back to Dr. Don Barden's work. Architecture is not a conference. It's not a mastermind or a traditional leadership program. It is across 4 two-day experiences within a year that women engage with research, peer intelligence that is curated, identity integration, and applied leadership work designed to move them from achievement, which what we've been doing, into authorship. So we are the ones writing this new story. So on day one of architecture, Dr. Don Barden helps women see the architecture. And so this is all of the data, this as a behavior economist, as all of his experience in this 4-year doctoral study, studying women from across the world. What he found is we will that day explore what is changing in business, in leadership, in technology, in culture, and in our workforce, and what the new human economy will require from those women preparing to build it. Then on day 2, you and I help each woman become the architect, right? So see the architecture, become the architect. And so what we do then is apply an identity and hidden friction filter to what she discovered in day 1 so that the information does not remain information. She begins identifying what could interfere with her ability to live it, what must be integrated, what she is ready to release, and who she must become to activate that new understanding through the way she leads. So the research, again, data, evidence, proof research provides the foundation. The room that we're in, and I'm not talking about the physical room, I'm talking about the people in the room, the collective wisdom in that room provides the intelligence, and the 2-day rhythm turns into an understanding and integration. So the year allows the architecture to become part of how she leads. So if you're listening to this and you want to explore a little bit more about Architect Her, or want to nominate a woman or even request company sponsorship information, you'll be sure to find the link in the show notes. So Ursula, let's connect everything we've discussed to what women will experience in architecture. So as I said, day 1 is about understanding the architecture. They're going to receive research, language, evidence, and a way to understand what is changing and why their leadership matters. But this is where most conferences and leadership experiences stop, because you receive information, right? You feel inspired. I know my team used to laugh every time I go to a conference. Here I'd come walking back in with my big legal pad of notes. They're like, here she goes again. And that pad of notes sat on my desk, and 3 months later, it was buried at the bottom of a stack, right? So you come home with these notes, these frameworks, all of these ideas, and then you get back in the environment where these expectations, the habits, the identity absorb that information without requiring anything fundamental to change. So day 2 is what we're doing to prevent that. It's the filter that each woman uses to take day 1 information through herself. So why is information alone not enough to create meaningful change? So how can someone leave this powerful experience inspired and return to what were the same patterns within days?
Well, that's a great question, because here's the answer. All this busyness is information. What goes on in the subconscious is the hard drive. So you can put as much information in, but if you have viruses in your hard drive and you're always having to compensate or work extra hard or hack or, clean or do the things because of this virus, you're spending a lot of energy adjusting, compensating, just retooling before. And then this information is trying to manage all of this stuff, but it can't. So when we get new information, because I'm very excited about the future. So when I gave that example of a boardroom and a meeting and creating an environment, if a woman gives herself permission to say, okay, we're not doing it that way anymore. Because if you've noticed, men have been in charge, and we identify that as patriarch system, but really the system that we're moving away from is power over. Mm-hmm. So as that mother card that we all carry, if we're healthy enough and if we're clean enough, we don't want to have power over our children or the people in our community that we are raising. They say raise a child. They don't say suppress a child. They don't say shame a child. They say raise a child. So in our cleanest mother way, we want to raise others. So my job as a leader is to raise the people that I am governing, that I am managing, that I am inspiring, that I am uplifting, then I need to have a clean relationship with them so they understand my intention. So I need to be clear with myself before I start communicating to my tribe, to my team, because I can't give the brand or do the thing or all by myself. I need people. And you had said that desire to be needed earlier when you were talking about the corporate people, under those pressures. And if I am a good leader and I say, I need you for this, you have an amazing talent for that. We as a company need your talent. Please perform. That person will be like, day and night, somebody needs me and they like my thing and the way I do it, I'm going to show up. And that's that excitement in the room. So when women are going to give themselves permission to lead from, I want to say their heart, but to lead from that place of integrity, that place of giving, that place of I want to rise people up. I want others to accelerate. I want our whole team to shine, because we're also involved in a movement called conscious capitalism, where they did a research and the bottom line companies that were just focused on the bottom line compared to people first, the people first 4 times more profit than the bottom line focus. So we're moving away from that kind of mentality and moving into people first. Who better to lead a people first group than a woman? Because we're people first minded, because we're naturally like that. Are they okay? What's going on with them? They seem like they're stressed out today. What's going on? And then they think, oh, you're so nosy. Who do you care? No, because I actually care. As a human being, I actually care about the people that I'm spending time with. And then in the corporate world, you can't care. Put your mask on, no caring. Then that's causing the inner friction. You see, so when we are allowed to give ourselves permission to say, I'm not going to do it that way anymore. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to imagine, what would my business look like if there were no more all of that stuff? And we didn't have to work 5 days a week. And I had to sit in traffic on the way there and back. What if I could design my business so I'm super happy, so my clients are super happy, so my workers are super happy? What would that look like? And women, we're the creators. We create holiday, birthday party, the magic that happens in a home, from a house to a home. That's all from that female perspective. So when we have the opportunity to create something, so day one will be, here's what's going on, here's the direction, here's what actually works, here's why women accelerate 3 times more than men in leadership. Their employees stay 6 years instead of 3 years. Here's what happens when a woman is leading, because somehow she's moved away from that system and created her own little environment and gives herself permission to lead from the female way. That's where she accelerates. So now we have a room full of women who are already leading from the female way, in different businesses and capacities, and maybe a corporate lady, maybe an ice cream vendor, who knows, who cares? But they're inside, they're like, I want to make a difference. I've got something to share. I'm in my own way. That's who the architect, her, is coming. Because she's like, I'm already successful, but something else is missing. And I'm in my own way, and I'm ferocious, and I will find the answer. And that's who's coming. So on day one, she gets here's how to do it. Here's the structure. Here's the outline. Here's the why. And then on day 2, it's the integration of how can I individually take this and put it into my world, and what's in my own way that's going to screw this whole thing up. And then where do I have tools to take a look at my saboteurs? Where can I identify my hot spots, my blind spots? And where can I get some support to help me move through? And that's why this container is 4 and 1 year long. It's 4 meetings in 1 year long, because now we're going to have a built-in community of like-minded individuals who can bounce back and say, hey, where's my accountability partner? How are you doing? You said you were going to do this thing. How are you doing? What kind of support do you need? I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to support you. That's the kind of thing that we need, because women have had to like sneak away and do their own little thing, outside the system. But now that the system is collapsing, we can be like, okay, let's get busy and help one another. So second day is integration, but individualized, because we all have our own story in our own way and our own controls. So once we say, okay, now I'm safe, let me take a good look and let me be honest with myself. That's what's going to happen. And people don't do that. People don't have the courage to do that. But in our capacity, we've been trained to do that. We know to do that. We're very successful at doing that. So you and I are coming in and creating an environment where we can have honest conversations with ourselves. And it's not like you're going to have to tell everybody all your deepest, darkest secrets. No, we're guiding it in a way that it's you and you. And if you need support, then the conversation opens. But it's like this reflection, identification, and you work with the identification piece. They can just continue to work with you, work with me outside of that weekend, and really become the person who they know inside they were born to be.
Yeah, well, that leads into this identity filter. As we've talked about triggers and hidden friction, I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like, what the identity, because we've learned in day one what is required. So now we have to look at who is the woman capable of leading this new architecture. What does she understand about herself now that she did not understand before? What part of her former identity helped her arrive here? And I want to acknowledge that, because a lot of times we look at ourselves in the past and we say terrible things about ourselves, but we have to acknowledge that that is the person that got us to where we are today. And we have to have gratitude for that person. We don't discard that person that got us here. We look at what we learned. We look at what we were able to create. But what part of that identity cannot go into leading what comes next? What are we no longer willing to use to prove our value? What do we have to authorize in ourselves? What is it that we must stop carrying? And how will this new identity become visible through our decisions, through our communication, relationships, the boundaries we put up, the authority we carry, and leadership? So day 2 is not about inventing a more impressive version of the woman. It's about helping her become internally available for what she now understands, that she is here to lead. And Ursula, you use the word create. Women are the ultimate creators. We create people, by God.
Right.
Like, that's why we're so connected to people. We create people. So, what does embodiment mean in practical leadership language? What does that look like? Because we're talking about integrating and embody. So we're back in our workplace after day 2 and we're showing up and we realize, okay, we can't lead the way we led before. Give me an example of what embodiment might look like.
So this mask that we wear also numbs us, because I can't feel feelings. Somebody just slimed me, that movie, the Ghostbusters, and they've been slimed, right? So yes. You can be in a report and you're like, hey, here's my presentation, worked weeks on it, burned the midnight oil, got in fights with the family over it, and here it is. It's like your piece of gold, and they just spit on it. And you're not supposed to have a fit on aisle 3 or start crying, so you just wear this mask of no numbness, no emotion. But when a woman leader is like, no, I'm not doing that to myself anymore. I am not wearing the mask. I am opening my throat. and I'm saying, excuse me, what did you just say? Do you know what that sounds like? Where are you coming from with that? And we can set boundaries. Now we can be inner resourced. So if someone's saying some violating things and I feel in my body, ouch, and then I check, was he just being a big jerk right now? Yes. Am I overreactive like I've been told so many times? No. Can I say something in this moment? Yes. So there's an inner dialogue that a person can have with her body and check and check and check. Because if he says some stupid thing and he's your boss and, you know, your paycheck or your raise or your whatever is at stake and he has that power over thing going on. And this has happened, you know, to so many people in a corporate structure. That's why women are like, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to go run my own business and figure it out. So say we're in this kind of conflict here. I can pause and have this inner dialogue with my heart, with my gut, with my intuition, with my, like, a part of me that loves me so much. Is this okay? Is this not okay? Should I say something? Should I not say? And then I can just figure all of this out in the silence as I look at that person straight in the eye going, you're about to get it right now. Back to the mother card. If you've ever been over somebody's house and you're all playing and the mom's like, cut it out, and she comes downstairs, we're all holding our breath and we're afraid. She could be 5'2" with a spoon in her hand, but we're terrified. I have seen men go into like, arrest. If a woman's like, I have had enough. You're my last nerve, right? Because when a woman gets mad, everybody should be afraid because the wrath of a woman is fierce. Like, I think people would be more afraid of a woman like with a spoon in her hand than a man with a gun in his hand. I mean, she's terrifying. So when we can access that thing says, don't mess with me. I've had enough. And we're correct. We're not going to power over them. We're not going to shame them. We're not going to do all the things. We're just holding a boundary. You will not be speaking to me that way. Mm-hmm. I am furious right now and I will leave the room, but we will continue this conversation.
And that's putting up boundaries. That's putting up boundaries. But I also want to note something from Dawn's research that is one of the main reasons, the formula of why women are so effective. And let me just pause here before I get to that. This is not a gender bashing thing. I want to be very clear on that, right?
No.
And I know you support that and fully believe that as well. There are men who are fully capable and do operate in this manner today.
Yeah.
And there are women who do not.
Yes.
Let's establish that. So when you were talking about, your boss comes to you, that boss may also be a woman, right?
Yeah,
so
more so. Sorry. Yeah. I gave that example in an old system. And the new system, say there's a new person in the old system, they can now be in the old system and set a boundary. Mm-hmm. Women who are leaders, unfortunately, have had to muscle their way in, have had these kinds of conversations, have demanded, a raise and all of that, because they had to fight in a man's world and they had to become a man fighter. So yes, they're a woman, but they're fighting in a woman way, but they have to play by the rules of the game of the men. So for another woman to come in, and I've heard this many times. So if there's a woman authority and a woman comes in and she gets knocked down, she can't go to the woman and say, hey, we're both women. Because if that closed door conversation happened, she would say back to, do you know what's at stake? Do you know what's at risk here? If I give you leeway and you screw up, it comes back on me. And I've fought every day, some of these women, to get where I am. You and your emotional breakdown right now is not something I can handle because I'm carrying the load for all women. So you need to act like a man right now and put your mask back on and get back to your desk. So she has like double pressure on her because she fought in a man's world to get to that position. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I gave a traditional example of the power over, but it doesn't have to be like that, because when we have better boundaries and we speak our truth, we're going to rock the boat. But to me, because I'm an entrepreneur, I don't understand why anybody would want to work in a corporate world, but that's okay, because that's my client. I understand, there's safety, there's direction, there's ladder, there's support. There's systems in place that are on the outside looks like an ideal, utopic situation where everybody wins. But when you hear the back, the closed door stories, you're like, oh.
Yeah. And the thing is we need people in companies, right? Like not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. We want to make that clear as well. But I think the point is, Ursula, this new human economy does not mean women come in and lead in the old pushing and proving and aggressive and control-filled way. It is women lead with this formula. They are going to make someone feel seen, feel heard, and feel understood. And when your team member feels seen, I mean, what is more powerful than to be seen, to be heard, to be understood? You are going to follow that leader all day long. That is why the statistic about women or people who work for women leaders will stay twice as long. And in the last half of their tenure, they are more productive because they do feel seen, heard, and understood. So wrapping this up, day 1 gives her the map. Day 2 helps her locate herself on the map. Day 1 reveals the architecture of what leadership must become. And day 2 reveals the inner architecture from which she is currently leading. And then we begin closing the distance between the two. And that is how information and understanding becomes integration. It's how insight becomes embodiment. And this is how a woman moves from admiring the future to becoming one of the architects. So, Ursula, last question for you. As we bring this conversation to a close, what becomes possible when a woman is no longer being unconsciously led by the triggers and protective patterns of her past, and she becomes fully available to the woman she is here to be now?
Amazing things. Just like I was saying, a house that turns into a home. When a woman comes into a child's life or a man's life and we love, we change their entire reality. We give purpose and meaning. So when somebody feels seen and heard, they want to celebrate, they want to contribute. They say, I have this gift. We've been all given gifts inside of us. And if we can share that gift, it gives us joy. And if someone's like, hey, you have a gift, you're really good at, doing the imagery, or you're really good at copy, or you're really good at navigating circumstance, or you're really good at creating, clarity out of chaos. You're really good at this. You're really good at communication. You're really good at making food. And someone's like, yeah, I am. I am. We feel so proud and we feel celebrated. And then we say, well, how can I make it better? So instead of, someone like, you need to perform better and you need to do, you're not inspired. But if I say, my God, this is excellent. This is beautiful. We're so lucky to have you. Guess what? They're going to go back to their office and go, how can I make this better? How can I make it shinier? How can I make everybody happier? Now we've inspired instead of, dictated. And that's what women do, is we rise, we raise children, we raise a company, we raise a team, we raise people up to be their best self because we want them to win. Power over doesn't want the underdog to win, but a woman wants her children to win, wants her husband to perform well at his work and be successful in whatever he thinks is important. women will lean in and say, what's the matter with you? What's going on? You know, you've been off, you've missed this meeting, you've done this. Like, how can I support you? What's going on? There, in our spiritual tradition, there's a thing that we refer to called Ubuntu. And that's from I believe, an African tribe. So when somebody's acting up, instead of criticizing and ostracizing the person, they put them in the middle and they say, what's going on with you? How are you suffering? What do we need to do to get you back to a place of joy? And that's what a woman naturally does. That's what the data says. We naturally care. So when you wear a mask, you can't care. When you take the mask off and you are in charge of yourself and your history and your thoughts, and you have capacity, all we want to do is care and uplift.
That's right. And so what I hope this conversation makes clear is that getting pulled off course does not necessarily mean that we lack commitment, intelligence, or desire. We may sincerely know who we want to be. We may clearly understand how we want to lead, but when that hidden friction is activated, an older response can take over before a conscious intention has a chance to lead. And that response is not proof that something is wrong with us. As you said, Ursula, it is information. It shows us where this earlier version of ourselves may still be protecting or controlling or proving or preventing or caring more than the woman we are becoming requires. And that's why day 2 of Architect Her matters. The new human economy will not be built simply because women understand the research. It will be built when women can integrate that understanding into how they make decisions, how they communicate, how they distribute authority, how they create trust and hold power and lead people. Day 1 helps her see the architecture, and day 2 helps her become the architect. So I want to invite our listeners, if you'd like to know more about Architect Her. A couple of episodes back, I had a 2-part conversation with Dr. Don Barden as he explains his research, as he talks about the origination of this program. And I want to speak specifically to the woman that is listening who knows something about the way she has been leading can no longer continue into this next decade. You are not looking for more information. There's plenty of that. You're ready to understand what continues pulling you back into these patterns that you've outgrown and what becomes possible when your identity, your leadership, and your contribution all begin moving in the same direction. And Architect Her may be the room where that becomes possible. Now, if you're not that woman, you may be thinking of a woman that you know. This is the woman people trust when decisions matter. You know who she is. The woman who carries more than her title reveals. The woman whose strength has become something everyone depends on. The woman who has already proven what she can carry. She's now ready to architect what comes next. She's going to be the author of that new story. Don't just simply forward her the episode. Tell her why you see her that way, and then nominate her for Architect Her. And you can do that. You'll find the link down in the show notes on how to do that. And finally, to our last audience today. You may be listening as a CEO, an executive sponsor, a board member, a talent leader, or an organizational decision maker. Consider the woman whose judgment, trust, influence, and institutional knowledge have become so essential to your organization. Consider whether you are asking her to assume greater responsibility without giving her a serious place to examine and redesign how that responsibility is carried. Sponsoring her participation in Architect Her is not simply recognition for what she has already achieved. It's an investment into this leader that she is becoming in your organization and in everything her leadership will make possible around her. So for everyone, Architect Her is a private, curated experience. The cohort is not simply filled. It is a room that is intentionally built. So to explore Architect Her, to nominate a woman, or request company sponsorship information, follow the link in the episode description, because the future will not be built by women who are simply capable of carrying more. It will be built by women who can see the architecture, become the architect, and lead what comes next. So I'd like to thank my friend, Dr. Ursula Lentine. And Ursula, we're really excited about day 2 and excited about helping anyone. If anything in this episode resonated with you, you'd like more information, feel free to reach out to Dr. Ursula or myself, and we'll have contact in the show notes. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you here next week.
Thank you, Lisa. This was great. I really enjoyed being able to share in practical terms. I really appreciate the way you ask questions and the way you build a context. It's not so many podcasters, they're all over the place, but you're very specific because you want to give value. And I really respect that about you. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me, Ursula. Thanks so much.